History. When I say the word history, what comes to your mind? Do you conjure up epic images of battles, Viking conquests, knights in shining armor, or maybe bad memories of that one history test that didn't go so well? Put those thoughts aside, because today I'd like to change your perspective. I'd like you to imagine history as a mirror in front of us, capturing our stories and reflecting them later for the future to see. But this mirror isn't a simple one. Hello everyone, I'm Hannah Prince, and today I'd like to talk about how our actions in the present shape the stories that become our future. See, if there's one thing unusual about history, it's that it contains many different versions of the same event. Remember those Viking conquests I mentioned earlier? From their perspective, it's tales of valor and victory, while their victims recorded terror, death, massacre. To quote the musical Hamilton, we have no control who lives, who dies, who tells our story. Different perspectives, different actions, different decisions, these can all change the shape of the mirror of history, and that's why I don't think it's a simple one. This is a simple mirror, a plain mirror. Its reflections are the same size and distance from the mirror as the object itself. But if we were to take it and curve it inwards, as if it were a part of a sphere, with its center right at the point C, we'd get a concave mirror. And now its mechanisms become a little more complex. Because the reflections are obtained on a screen in front of it rather than somewhere inside it, we call them images instead. To analyze these images, we take an axis and two reference points, the center of curvature, or C, and the mirror's focus, or F. Now, depending on where the object is with respect to these 2 points, its image might be bigger or smaller. And that's why I think history is a concave mirror. What's interesting to note is that the closer the object gets to the mirror, the further away the image gets reflected, almost like it's avoiding scrutiny. So when I say that history is a concave mirror, am I implying that its images hide things? It sounds a little dramatic, right? Let's take a journey, you and me. Let's get as close to the mirror as we can and explore how scandals, betrayals, and distorted portrayals are making our life stories the twisted, warped things they are today. Act 1. Betrayals. You've all been in group projects before, right? Has anything ever gone wrong? Specifically, have you ever had this moment where you felt like your work just wasn't acknowledged? Let's start with the one thing we as humanity take ownership of way too easily: other people's work. And this is what causes the first distortion. When an object is placed anywhere beyond the point C in front of a mirror, its image becomes much smaller. In history, I believe this represents the story of the marginalized. They are ignored despite their accomplishments, and all credit for their work gets redistributed in history. What do I mean by this? Introducing the Matilda effect, the bias against acknowledging the achievements of women in science with credit for their work going purely to male colleagues. Rosalind Franklin and Lise Meitner are both very prominent women scientists who went through this injustice. But this isn't just in the field of science. Elizabeth Maggie created the Landlord's Game, a board game involving the buying and selling of industries. A certain Charles Darrow made a few minor modifications before patenting it himself, and lo and behold, he became the official inventor of Monopoly. Now, I know what you're thinking. This is all in the past, outdated. Stuff like that doesn't happen anymore, right? Wrong. It does happen, just more subtly. In fact, when it happens in a workplace, we even have a name for it. Wordplay on the word repeating becoming he-peating, when a man passes off the thoughts and creations of a woman as his own, receiving praise for it instead. Misogynism, casteism, racism, classism, all these are just opportunities for people in power to ignore the stories of the people they wish to suppress. Thankfully, light is slowly being shed on these injustices, and we're coming to know of them. So now we must move even closer, revealing more of the Midder's secrets. Act 2. Scandals. I love superhero movies, let's be honest. But sometimes I can't help but wonder, what about those injuries, the deaths, the millions of dollars in property damage? Forget that, just the traffic jams? All I wanted to do was get to school on time, and now I'm stuck on the bridge watching the Flash fight a villain like some unskippable YouTube ad. Why does the city not hold him accountable for these things? I mean, half the time they don't even realize that there is a bad guy to fight, so he's a hero can't always be their justification, right? Then it hit me. It's because he held himself accountable. When a particularly epic showdown left his city in shreds, he rebuilt it at night, by himself. He accepted the wrong, even if he didn't cause it directly, and he set it right. And that's why people forgave him for it. And this thought made a big impression on me. Everyone makes mistakes, everyone does wrong, but it's only when we attempt to cover them up that it really sparks anger. Warning: crisis, lead contamination detected. Please avoid drinking or using tap water until further notice. This is all the officials of Flint, Michigan had to say when their city's water supply was contaminated with lead in 2014. But you know what they did instead? They misled the public, denying the situation to prevent political backlash. As a result, thousands of children ended up being exposed to lead poisoning. And you know what's ironic? They ended up resigning. The prominent officials who spread the lies in the first place, and even the governor of Michigan was asked to do the same. How's that for political backlash? When we refuse to take ownership of our mistakes, they only cause outrage, earning scandal status when we attempt to hide it instead of admitting it. Alright, I think we've seen all that we can. But actually, there's something else that we've missed, in front of us all along. Let's dive in. Act 3. Distorted Portrayals. I've loved the reverse card even before it became a meme. I love the thought of turning a monotonous game head over heels and bringing excitement into it. But it turns out, games aren't the only things we can turn head over heels. It's not just distortion in size that occurs to objects in these regions. The image is flipped, upside down. When we refuse to take ownership of our inabilities, our inferior feelings, our thoughts end up taking a twisted turn. Let's explore how that happens. Have you ever heard of the Trojan horse from Homer's The Odyssey? It was basically this box of enemy soldiers disguised as a gift. The city of Troy opened its gates in excitement, only to be brutally ambushed by Ithacans in a very chaotic blink of an eye. When we don't conquer our inferior feelings, they give way to jealousy and spite, and they become about as predictable as a Trojan horse, turning an innocent person's life upside down. What do I mean by this? Marie Antoinette. When I say that name, the phrase, "if they cannot eat bread, then let them eat cake," must surely come to mind. Those words have come to represent her entire character. But what if I told you that this is actually believed to be a line from a book written by Jean-Jacques Rousseau decades before her time? Because people wished to sully her name, they put this fake quotation on her, and it became her Trojan horse, turning her life into that of a villain's. Divorced, beheaded, died. Divorced, beheaded, survived. The 6 legendary wives of Henry VIII. But today I want to focus on Anne Boleyn, the second wife, because her life too was turned around in a cruel and ironic way. She was accused of adultery and executed for it. What's ironic about that? Henry VIII accused her in a fit of rage so that he could get rid of her and marry another woman. Her decapitation unfairly, was because of a crime that Henry VIII was actually committing. When insecurities take control of our thoughts, we lose control of our emotions. And sometimes we make that wicked decision to take an innocent person's life and hold up the reverse. Scandals, betrayals, distorted portrayals. That's all I hinted about in the beginning. But we can still take just one step closer, one final distortion of history to unveil. The last one, I promise. Act 4. Finally, we've gotten as close to the mirror as we can, as close to revealing what history has to hide. We hold up our screens, we're excited. What new distortions, what new stories will it unveil? But there's nothing, not even a mark on the screen. We see the reflection in the mirror, but there's no corresponding image in real life. Welcome to the final, most violently distorted stories of all, the ones that never even happened. How do distortions of such magnitude begin? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. It's one of the most false statements we've been led to believe. Words are powerful. Words are power. And when we use them to spread lies and falsehood, trouble inevitably starts. Think of it this way. Every time we spread a lie, it's like we're growing a branch in history, pun intended, that never actually was meant to be there. It becomes a tangled mess, and pruning it, an endless, chaotic game of true or false. But you know what's unfortunate? These lies can't be pruned. They stay in our lives and spread like wildfire. And when you play with fire, you're going to get burned. What might I mean by this? Let me give you an example. Han ver Meegeren, a Dutch man. He sold supposedly legitimate artwork by Dutch painters like Vermeer, but was actually passing off skilled forgeries of his own. You know what happened? He ended up revealing himself in an ironic twist of fate to avoid getting charged with treason for selling Dutch paintings to the Nazis. This lie might have started out small, but in the end, it consumed his life. When we don't hold ourselves accountable for our words, eventually we create these chapters that have no trace of reality, but we try to edit them instead in any way, and only we end up facing the consequences for it. All right, we've learned 4 possible ways the mirror of history gets distorted. But if the mirror is deformed and the reflections it reveals aren't reliable, what do we do about it? Where do we store the stories of our life? Where do we go to learn about the past? When I was younger, my sister convinced me that there was this world hidden in my grandfather's mirror filled with secret adventures. I remember doing everything I could to get into it, short of breaking the mirror. Eventually, I gave up and looked behind it instead, and the wooden cupboard I found there satisfied my 10-year-old hopes pretty much completely. It's a little embarrassing now, but I will admit that it's taught me something. When faced with a mirror that we know isn't real, sometimes it's best to just look behind, beyond. History isn't just blind belief in facts as they've been portrayed. We go as far as the mirror takes us and then we leap, seeking what it missed too. As we make conscious efforts not to distort our images, we learn what history really should be. Lessons learned from the people before us and around us. History repeats itself over and over because we never truly learn from these mistakes, and we never learn because we never accepted them to begin with. Humanity needs to look to itself and say, I'm starting with the man in the mirror, and I'm asking him to make the change. Michael Jackson, ahead of his time. All right, finally, what do we do about the mirror itself? We can't just take history and smash it to smithereens. That's 7 years of bad luck for breaking a mirror. I personally think there's a much less violent and easy solution. There's this one point, C, on the mirror, that if we were to place an object, its image would be the exact same height and distance from the mirror as the object. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, it's the characteristic feature of those plane mirrors we started this talk with. So if we were to zero in on this point, stretch it out, We could create a plain mirror again, one with no flipping, shrinking, enlarging, or disappearing images. The good, the bad, and the ugly all get reflected equally vibrantly, and no one controls where or how they appear. It's one thing to take ownership of our mistakes, our work, our action, our emotions, and seek to change ourselves. And it's a very different thing to take the mirror watching us and distort it till all memories of our ugly reflections are hopelessly warped. The choice of which road to take is, of course, yours. I'll give you that. But think about it. When we play Monopoly, shouldn't we know that it was Elizabeth Maggie who created it? When we laugh at Let Them Eat Cake, shouldn't we know that it was just a mistranslation from a book? Don't we deserve to have our true stories told too? And don't our future learners deserve to have our stories as lessons as well? When we accept ownership of our lives in all its beauty and strength, and ugliness and weakness, the mirror of history, doesn't have to miss a thing. Thank you.